Hey guys, what's up? Andy here. I'm a self-taught software developer, and today's video is all about the things I've learned over the past 3 years after becoming a software developer. So normally I do videos on software development topics and they're pretty structured. I try to think ahead of time, but this is totally off the cuff. I'm gonna see where it goes. I have no idea what I'm about to say, but let's just get it into the meat and potatoes of the thing. So I became a software developer in March of 2015. So it's over 3 years that I've been a software developer, and I had a lot of ideas of what software development would be, obviously, before I became a developer, because that was my very first job. And there are definitely things that, kind of reflecting back on what my expectations were versus reality, are pretty interesting. I think the first thing I really learned was just probably the general expectations of what life would be like as a software developer. My vision of a software developer was actually pretty interesting. I sort of always assumed that all software developers worked in sort of an environment that you think of when you think of sort of Google, right? Where you come in and it's a relaxed environment and your employer caters to you. There's ping pong tables, there's beer taps, beer available for you to drink all the time. Your meals are taken care of. Obviously, I didn't think that every company was like that, but I guess my point is I thought that sort of it was a very cushy lifestyle. And my first job was with a very small company. I think it was a total of 12 people in the company, but there was only 3 or 4 developers, including myself. So it was just a small company atmosphere, but definitely we were catered to in terms of we were allowed to do pretty much whatever we wanted in terms of if we needed to work remotely, work from home, if we needed to take off at a moment's notice, because we weren't really it wasn't like a high pressure situation where we had to get software out for some sort of reason, but it was great. I mean, it definitely was very cushy from that perspective. In other words, I've had jobs where even taking like a day off in the middle of the week is just like, it's like throws management into fits. But there wasn't, we didn't have a pool table, we didn't have a beer keg for beer, so that was definitely different. Another thing I'd say was different was my perspective of what daily work would be like. And again, it goes back to that. So I thought it would be at least I thought I would sort of have a very relaxed sort of mentality about work, where I would just come in and I'd kind of have conversations with people, and then I'd have a meeting, and then I'd work. But in my company, and again, this is my company, every software developer I know really has a different sort of situation at their company. But at my first company, the culture was sort of just like you get to work, you put your head down and you work. And we were all friends, and there was definitely a decent amount of collaboration. We can discuss things as needed, but there wasn't a whole lot of get up, walk around, just hang out for like 20, 30 minutes and then get back to work, which for me, I kind of need, because I can't just, like, I've tried sitting at the computer for, long periods of time. And, if I'm at a computer for 6 to 8 hours, like straight without a single break, it just, my productivity just goes down the drain. I don't think as clearly. So I like to do sort of like natural breaks. But yeah, it worked. There was definitely, I think at least that first year for sure was very helpful, because I really wanted to code. Like for me, I just wanted to be doing code. Like I wanted to be coding for 8 hours a day. I came from a position where I was self-studying on my own for the most part, and I would love to be paid to essentially study, right? To essentially learn how to code. So that was a big sort of learning lesson too, is just that coding can be what you want it to be. Oh, another thing I learned is sort of just how to deal with, I think it's sort of just learning how to work. I am a conscientious person in the sense that if I'm not doing something, like if I'm not working, I feel like I'm useless. Like I have this sort of insanity about my brain where I'm either have to be 100% relaxing or 100% working, but there's no in between. So typically I'm working, so that's what I like to do. Well, as I mentioned before, I love coding, and so I have a tendency to just code until my brain is essentially scrambled and I need like 8 hours off, right? And that's really unhealthy. Like it's unhealthy for so many reasons. One, it's just not very productive. Like you can sit in front of a computer for 8 hours and you could say to yourself, well, I was furiously coding, like I was really trying to figure stuff out. But at the end of the day, your ability to think clearly and to solve problems diminishes, and you don't even realize it because you're sort of just sucked into what you're doing. So I've sort of learned over the course of the last 3 years, especially the last year more than anything else, just to really, take a deep breath, be more mindful, be more mindful about your coding. Just like step back and think about things like, it's great to want to really work hard. It's great to want to produce high quality stuff. But don't confuse sort of sitting at the computer and feeling like intense, like, because that's what I do, right? Like I sit there, I'm like, "Ugh," it's like typing away, like, "Ugh, ugh, ugh." That's not the same as actually sort of enjoying the process, enjoying the moment, and coming up with truly intelligent solutions. What I mean by that is when you are sort of thinking clearly, when you're relaxed and you're in the moment, more or less, you come up with better solutions than when you're sort of just furiously coding for hours and hours. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes there's a need for furious coding and there's definitely a place for it, but again, it shouldn't be every single day. I think it's unhealthy and it's something I've learned and I'm much happier for it as a developer. Another thing I've definitely learned is knowing everything, right? I don't care how many times I've heard it from developers or mentors or other software developers, but the idea that you don't have to know everything is so true, right? But you still don't want to believe it. So I'd say the first year at least of my career, I was, anything new, whether it was a new JavaScript framework or even a new, programming language that I didn't know, I wanted to learn it. I wanted to just be able to if my boss ever asked me, like, can you set up a virtual machine of this, or can you do a little application of this? Like, I always wanted to be able to say yes and mean it. And so I would pick up any programming language I could. I would try to make an app. I would do stuff on the side. I'd spend my free time, learning as much as I could, and that's great. I definitely enjoyed it. But what I've started to realize more or less that you can definitely do that. Like if you have that passion, absolutely go there. But knowing more, like stuffing your brain with more information, more programming languages, is not as valuable as you think. And in fact, you can't really know everything. Like there's just not enough time in the day. And not only that, like companies don't need you to know everything. It's good to know something. It's good to know how to learn something. So if you work at some place and they're like, you know what, we need some sort of deployment process where when we deploy our app, when we deploy our code to the servers, we need to run tests, we need to deploy it to different instances. Well, if that's the problem that your company has, and you know that there's deployment software out there like TeamCity or something, and you don't know how to use it, at least, in that instance, you know that you have a good shot of learning how to do it if you're just given a couple of days to look at the documentation, to play around with things. But to know it very well may never come in handy in your life. But, again, it all goes back to sort of trusting yourself that you're able to learn quickly and you are able to find the information that you need to find and apply it. That's way more important than knowing every single programming language, knowing every single JavaScript framework. I think now that I've been doing this for 3 years, I'm really trying to focus on some of the, I don't want to call them advanced topics of software development because, to be honest with you, like things like writing clean code, writing good tests, writing tests in general, right? Organization of your application, meaning sort of how it's structured. These are things that are like subtle and important, but super, super important that you should learn early on, but even later in your career, you can sort of revisit these topics and sort of become better at them in a deeper level. Just to reiterate what I just said, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know every programming language, but if you're passionate about it, go do it. But really, it's all about learning things deeply. And I think that's more important, at least at this stage of my career. Who knows? Maybe next year I'll be like, the new thing is learning every programming language, but probably not. All right, and I'll wrap it up with one last point, and I will say this. Coding has absolutely changed my life. That is something that I've learned. I'm so happy that I found something that I love. I hate to reiterate this, but for people who haven't watched my other videos, I was a car salesman before. That was like one of the last jobs I had before I became a software developer. And it's been a real struggle, meaning I always felt like my talents were misplaced. Like I like to overthink things. I don't like to be pressuring people to sell. I mean, I always sort of knew that there was something out there that I could do really well, but I had never really found it. And when I became a software developer and I was able to sit at a computer and work on figuring out problems and work with other people, I was like, man, this is just exactly what I wanted to do. And 3 years later, I'm still doing it. There are definitely things about software development that are challenging, right? Like sitting at a computer all day and figuring out how to live a healthy lifestyle and figuring out how to, keep your mental health together when you're sitting at a computer and sort of problem solving all day. But I've definitely navigating those challenges and I'm super happy about it. And I, hope that things stay on the trajectory that they are and that software developers are still always going to be in demand for years and years to come. And I don't know, if you're deciding that you want to become a software developer, I highly recommend it. If you want, I'll leave a link below in the description here. I'm offering a mentoring/coaching program. Very, very limited availability, but check it out in the description below, and check it out on my webpage there. Other than that, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought. I don't normally do videos where I don't at least have some sense of what I'm going to talk about. So this might be the most boring video ever. I don't care. I'm just going to let you guys decide. If you really hate it, we'll figure out what to do. But thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and subscribe below. Hit the bell if you want to be notified anytime that I put out a new video. Like the video if you liked it. And that's about it. All right. Peace out.